Alright, we were out here this morning to get into that starter solenoid right there. So the symptoms, recently the truck has been starting weird. Sometimes it would just chatter or just go clunk, 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 a lot like a dead battery. So my first test was to separate all the batteries from each other and then let them sit overnight, and then test their voltages to see if I had a bad battery in the 4 that was pulling down the rest of them. And it was fine. Then I reconnected them and tried to start it with my meter on the battery terminals so that I could watch the overall battery voltage, and it only dropped to about 23 volts when I was starting it, so the batteries were fine. It means that either the starter motor is drawing too much current, which we obviously isolated and tested by seeing that it only was drawing down to 23. I mean, it wasn't like it was pulling it way down. So the starter motor wasn't drawing too much current. The only thing left was that the main solenoid was not making good contact. So that's what we're going to do this morning before the tours start. So I'm going to pull the end off that starter solenoid, and there's a copper washer that touches on 2 contacts, and we're going to flip that copper washer over. It's not exactly a long-term fix, but it'll get us running right now, and then I'll get another starter solenoid rebuilt and on its way out here, because I'm pretty limited in what I can rebuild out here to myself. So in order to get at that, I removed the inner fender well. I've turned the truck so the steering wheels are pointed all the way to the right to give me some room to get up in underneath there, and disconnected the batteries because you don't want that basic welding current level of electricity flowing into this while you're taking it apart. And next, we'll remove the large lugs. Those are 3/4. You'll have to remove that strap that connects the starter motor. And then the small ones are 3/8. And I was advised to throw a tarp down underneath the truck to catch any parts that may drop that don't get lost in the grass. There's small screws and a small spring in there. So I'm going to spread a tarp out on the ground underneath all of this in order to catch all those pieces, and we'll get at it. Alright, I just wanted to point out an absolute stupid brain fart that I did. When I said that this wire went here, right, that's retarded. That's the main jumper. If your big wire goes right here, your starter motor will run all the time. The wire goes down here. I have no idea why I said that. It is absolutely incorrect. And yeah, I mean, I guess like my excuse is it's well, now it's almost 8 o'clock in the morning. My excuse was it was 6, but regardless, I've taken this thing apart 3 times now trying to figure out why the heck does the starter motor start every time I put the battery back together. It's because it goes down there and I'm an idiot. That's the main jumper, so the power comes in here, across, and then back out. And I'm just, yeah, when I said that the big wire went right here and the other wire was done, I'm dumb, okay? The jumper goes right here. This wire must go on the other side. Just confessing. Alright, now that we have everything disconnected here, the 2 big terminals, the big wire, this one here only reaches the 1, so you don't have to worry about it. And then this little one here is the top one, and then that little one down there is the bottom one. You got to pull these apart, and so it's 5/16 on this side, 3/8 on that side, at least on this one. The other one I've seen was just a 3/8 bolt here. They went all the way through. So this has got a little more to it. But yeah, we'll get that cover plate off, and there is a wire that connects the back side of one of these 2 studs to the inside of the terminal, and there isn't a whole lot of extra room there. So once you get it loose, I mean, don't just be yanking that bad boy off. You'll regret that deeply. Well, this is a fantastic development. This one is a completely different style than the other ones I've worked on. It has a steel ring tell if that's a C-clip down there that holds that on. Not a copper ring. It's also hardly burned at all. I was told by an old fella, well, my father was told by an old fellow who used to rebuild these back in the day, that the main cause for starter solenoid failure is low battery voltage, that they don't get a nice clear snap that gets them good contact. They get a loose snap, and that of course results in not nearly as much pressure, and so it's not as good, and because it's not as good, there's a lot more resistance, and then that's what burns out your contacts. But this is fantastic. So crap. Both of my contacts are here, and they're here, and I can rub them with my finger, and they feel perfect, which is an unfortunate development for me. I actually want them to not feel perfect. I can feel a bit of a ridge where, you know, because this thing does not overlap them completely, so it'll slowly work its way down in. I can feel a little bit of that ridge in there, but to be totally honest, it's in really pretty good shape. You can get at those, you can unbolt them right here, loosen it, and you can turn these, at least on this particular starter solenoid, which is completely different than the last one I took apart. So you could rotate those around, but mine feel perfect. There is some pitting here where it's clearly not gotten as good a contact as I would like. But crap, I see nothing in here that would cause it to do the things that it says it's doing. I believe there is a smaller solenoid that fires this solenoid, so now I guess I need to go look at that small solenoid and see if potentially it's failing. But yeah, this was all for naught, because this thing is fine inside. Hell, I mean, it hasn't even worked all the way around. So I mean, it's only burned from right here to right here. This has done very little starting. I'll go ahead and spin this so that the contacts are hitting fresh spot anyways. Put it back together, but that's not my problem. If it was your problem, you might see this. Hopefully you have a copper ring and it's all pitted up, and maybe the top of your contacts is all beat up. And a temporary fix is to flip that ring over and unbolt these posts and then twist them so that you get the new part touching up in there. It's a temporary fix, but temporary could last you several years, kind of temporary fix. But for me, I'm not going to be that lucky. So now I got to fight this bad boy back together and go up the chain and find the next starter solenoid and see if it is responsible for my problem.